Wonderful invite to be here. I am in Oak Bay. I have not been off the island, Vancouver Island, for those chiming in elsewhere, since March the 12th, when the world fell off a cliff. I'm here to talk about leadership and 9 leadership lessons, but somewhat obviously, that elephant in the room we have to get out of the way. And that is, I don't know about you, but I know more about protein spikes than I care to. And I just wish this thing never entered my life because it's created such chaos in our lives. I mean, have you been to Costco lately? It snakes right around like 6 blocks if you just, are looking for any sort of good. And then when you actually get into a grocery store these days, not only you got to mask up, but then you're hoping for the best, i.e. you're hoping that there's toilet paper. I mean, that's where we're at. Now, of course, most of us were sent home. And so we had to go work from home. And then some of us still have children learning from home. And when that happens, there's a different form of chaos that's happening in the pandemic. So for example, moms are writing notes on the front of the door in the office or the bedroom. Mom is in a meeting from 9:30 to 11. Do not enter. Answers to your questions could be no, in the wash, piece of fruit. Now, dads are also working from home, and dads have a different strategy, although similar. Dad is in a meeting on the date, October 28th, I guess all day. Do not enter or lose screen time for 2 days. Now we're talking, right? Now we're getting specific. But that all being said, I don't miss this. When we used to go into the office and we had to do some printing, and I don't miss the people who left that massive paper jam, and they just said, forget it, I'm out, I'm done, I don't care. You people, I don't like very much. I also don't like the people who used to steal my lunch, and they just sort of put a sign on the fridge. It's not funny. Stealing, it could cost you your job. So I got to put up a teenager stealing my food here at home, but at least my lunch isn't being stolen in the lunchroom. Now, there's a reality here, and the pandemic is, although with good news on it looks like 3 vaccines, the reality is that for the better part of what I would argue to be another year, we're in some form going to be working from home. We may even be learning from home soon. So what that means essentially is that we're going to be doing this. I may be a writer and a strategist and working with organizations around the globe, and I get to do keynotes, but I'm doing it now, all of it through a lens. And so are you. But I'm worried. And I do want to show you that I care by first asking you to get out your phones. And you're like, what? Yeah, I'm going to make this talk interactive. So I want you to go in a web browser on your phone or your laptop, I don't really care, and go to pollev.com/Dan P. Coincidentally, that's me. So we're going to do some quizzes and some word clouding over the next, I think we've got 6 hours, which is fantastic. So thank you to Rising Economy Week. Now, the first question I have for you is, I'd like to know one word that describes how you're feeling right now in the midst of the pandemic. So when you go to pollev.com/Dan P, we're not taking any of your data. It's anonymous, no one cares, but we want to know how you're feeling first. So here we go. We got a couple ones here. Tired, uncertain, stressed. Yeah, I mean, if you type in the word more than once, it gets bigger. That's how word clouds go. Blah, that's a good one. Well, it's not a good one. We got resilient, fantastic. Antsy, someone knows big words, well done. Burned, ouch, yeah. Got a couple good ones here, right? So we got hopeful, fantastic. We got annoyed, yeah, I can feel that. More stress, anxious is coming up. Bored, tell me about it. I haven't been off the island in 8 months, and I used to travel 150,000 miles a year. So my family hates me. They want to know when the pandemic's over just to get rid of me. Growing, I like that. Reflective, oh, that's so good. I love that. What else we got here? Lonely, oh, see, that tears me apart. Really, I'm sorry to hear that. Lost, pissed. All right, now we're really getting good. Now, not good, but see, I feel that we're all in kind of various moods as it comes to where the pandemic is, but they do range from like the tired, stressed, bored, lonely, oh my God, to a little bit of resilience, a little bit of curiosity, a little bit of learning. But we're all feeling it. I think it's fair to say that this has gripped the entire planet, and as such, we've got some work to do. Now, I went and bought a Ticketmaster ticket to stay home and do nothing. I've been doing that since March, and it cost me $40, and my seat actually says couch, so that's pretty good. But then when the penny farthing opened up in Oak Bay again, and I could go have a pint, because I'm a big London Pride fan, I thought to myself, well, I expected to see this sign. Due to COVID-19, Sweet Caroline is banned. There will be no touching hands or reaching out or touching me or touching you. So it's not quite a pub experience when that happens. And about a month ago, my wife Denise bought a geodesic dome and sits in our backyard. So I guess that's where we're having Christmas. I don't know. So there's that. That's my pandemic woe. And my dad, who lives in England, in Stratford, sent me the latest Lonely Planet books. I don't know if you can see these, but I mean, isolation tips and locating the front door. That was a big volume. Also, the stairwell. I spent a lot of time there. The kitchen. I mean, we have a big one, so it's a big volume. So yeah. So all of this, again, is kind of freaking me out. It's that, could this thing just go away? But remember, it's about leadership, and that's what we need. I hope that's why you're here today, because when the pandemic hit in Norway, Prime Minister Solberg held a special press conference just for the children of Norway. And she said, look, it's okay to be scared when so many things happen at the same time, but by being home, you are helping other people not be contaminated or to get sick. And it's important for those who already have a disease or who are very old. She spoke directly to the children, demonstrating a sense of care, both for the children, but also for the elderly that could be, pretty contaminated or contagious from, the COVID-19 situation we sit in. Now, go to New Zealand, and Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern had a conference for children, and this was in middle of March, and she said, look, I know that we're all on lockdown right now, but I've managed to get hold of the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny, and we've come to an agreement that they'll not be on lockdown anymore, so the Easter Bunny's gonna be able to come into your homes and deliver eggs and chocolates, and the Tooth Fairy is gonna be able to come in and grab your teeth now and give you some coins. So for me, it's really all about leadership. Whether the crisis is a pandemic or whether it's moving in a new direction as an organization, but are you caring as you lead, which is the ultimate question. Because I have found some very bad eggs in this pandemic, and we're just gonna scratch the surface. Now in San Francisco, there's an e-scooter company called Bird. May have heard of them, may have used their scooters. Now, no tourists were really going anywhere, and so no one was renting a scooter anymore, so they had to lay off some people. I mean, we've seen layoffs, it's a pandemic. But it begs the question, how are you laying off your people? Now, what Bird decided to do was for the 406 people that they let go, they recorded a video, they invited everyone to a Zoom call, and they played the video and said, you're fired, basically. That was it. Not individual, thank you, one-on-one, this is tough, exit interviews, etc. A mass firing over a video that was just played on a Zoom call. That's not caring at all. In the States, Paycheck is a kind of HR benefits company, big insurance company. I mean, they've got almost $4 billion in revenue and almost 15,000 employees. Its founder came out in May and said, the damages of keeping the economy closed as it is could be worse than losing a few more people. So I hope he goes to hell. That's crazy. Now, over in the UK, Mike Ashley, founder of Sports Direct, which is essentially a huge athletic gear, you get your soccer jerseys, all kinds of stuff, right? When the pandemic hit in the UK, he said that his shops were essential services, and he forced all his employees to continue working for like a week until there was a huge public uproar. And there's countless stories that are horrible, but there's good examples too, where I've noticed actual leadership happening that's caring. Down in the States, Allstate, they gave $1 billion back to customers, like literally $1 billion. Said, hey, it's for you. If you like your sporting goods stores, Dick's, its founder and chairman said, we're not taking salary for 1 year at least. This was back in March. And they said, we're not going to take any buybacks either. We're going to stop our buyback plans so that we can give money back to our employees. BlackRock, world's largest shadow bank, $7 trillion in assets. Larry Fink, its CEO, came out and said, we're not laying off anybody, however long this takes. And if people can't come into work, we're going to continue to pay them, whether they're, cafeteria, maintenance, whatever, because they may be unable to come in or can't have to support someone at home. We will continue to pay their wages. In Australia, Woolworths, kind of like a grocery chain, etc., looked around and said, holy smokes, a lot of people are being laid off in airlines and retail shops, so let's hire them. They hired 20,000 of them, specifically out of the industries and people who lost their jobs. And then they looked around to their First Nation communities and they said, why don't we purchase hand sanitizers from the indigenous communities and use those in our stores for the employees and the customers? Kind of fits with their purpose, which is to create better experiences together for a better tomorrow. Now, no haters, but I'm a Manchester United supporter, and recently its talismanic striker Marcus Rashford was in the news. Why? Because he remembered when he was a kid, he didn't have any food. He was very poor. And when the children across the UK were sent home, he remembered that the kids would have food at school, like their breakfast and their lunch, through a meal plan program. And when they got sent home, a lot of these kids were going hungry. So Rashford pushed the government twice to continue the funding, by which about a month ago he was given the MBE, one of the highest orders inside of the British Empire, by the Queen. And he's inspiring others through his care. A young boy, Jack, wrote to him and said, because of you, you want me to help others. I'm going to donate more food to the food banks, and I'm going to donate our toys to charity to help those in need. Now, he goes on to say, could you please join Tottenham Hotspurs, a rival football club? So I don't really like the kid now, but he's inspired by Marcus, which is what is the point about care. Now, if you come to our country here in Canada, some of you know Lawlor. It's a huge grocery chain, various firms underneath it, Shoppers, No Frills, etc. Angie Kim is the VP of Operations for Lawlor. Now, she's at headquarters in Brampton. Like everyone at headquarters, they got sent home. Now, what happens next? She took her about a week to realize that, yeah, she could do her job from home, but she thought about the frontline team members. And so for 3 or 4 shifts a week, she's just volunteering her time to go into various Lawlor-owned shops, Shoppers, Lawlors, right, etc. And she's stacking shelves and she's putting groceries in bags and she's just being there for free because she felt that she should be beside her frontline team members, even though operations has nothing to do with the grocery stores. And then in the city I now live in, which is Victoria, a big shout out to Robert Bonas, who's the director of finance with the BC Pension Corporation. And when the pandemic hit, here's what Robert did. He looked around to his team of about 15 or so, and everyone was working from home, obviously. But a couple days in, he thought to himself, you know what? I think I should rent a truck. And I'm going to go into the BC Pension Corporation headquarters. I'm going to grab everybody's stuff from their monitors to their ergonomic chairs to their coffee mugs. I'm going to sanitize it all, and I'm going to make individual trips to every one of their homes or flats or condos, ring them up and say, hey, I've got your stuff. Why don't you come get it? That's what I'm getting at. So the question I have for you as we embark on our journey today is, whether you're leading self or leading others, how are you doing? How are you doing it? And what I suggest is that in this book, which we're giving away a few at the end of this, the 9 leadership lessons that I've taken from a 25-year career all come back to how you lead yourself and how you lead others. So let's go. Lesson number 1 is to be relatable. Now, we brought up 2 prime ministers already. I thought I'd bring up ours. This is not about politics. This is about the first lesson, be relatable. About a month ago, Justin Trudeau on Twitter showed this tweet. "You would have been 45 today, little bro. We think about you every day. We miss you and love you lots." That's his little bro, Sasha, who was lost to the family due to a tragic avalanche many moons ago. That's being relatable to Canada. He didn't have to do that. But many folks didn't know of the tragedy that the circumstances in the Trudeau family with his younger brother. There's a way to relate. Now, what if you make a mistake like KFC in the UK did? Now, last year, for about a week, KFC right across the UK ran out of chicken. I kid you not. Leadership issues, supply chain issues, and you know the C for KFC stands for chicken, right? Kentucky Fried Chicken. Literally had no chicken. So what did they do? Management took a look at themselves and said, well, maybe we should put out adverts and say, we're sorry, and rearrange the letters of KFC to almost spell a swear word. And so self-deprecating, but also taking leadership, that's what we should be doing to care and to relate to others. So what are some tips to be relatable? Well, first, why don't you bring in your personality, like this woman, into the office, into your Zoom meetings, into your work somehow. Stop being a Teflon dork, right? We are humans. You're not in the people business, you're in the relationship business. So bring your personable skills, if you will, into your meetings, into your way of leading. And follow that up with saying, you know what? I make mistakes and I'm going to say sorry going forward. Not cover them up or pretend that you don't make mistakes. And then you're going to ask for help as well, because you don't want to be a know-it-all. You want to be a I need help at all. Know-it-alls are no good for relatability. In fact, it's an absolute travesty. And then we need to make connections. And I mean that sincerely. I mean, how do you reach out to someone to actually build that relationship? To say, we're one, we're together in this. Because if you don't, hell breaks loose and there's no relationship. Lesson number 2, I call play for meaning. Now, whether or not you're a Montreal Canadian fan, they won the Stanley Cup in 1993. I'm not, but I happened to be at the Forum that day because I was going to McGill at the time. Now, Patrick Roy received the cup, the goalie, then immediately went over to the boards, over to the glass. A cameraman popped up on the other side, filmed him because Patrick Roy said, I'm Patrick Roy, I just won the Stanley Cup, I'm going to Disneyland. And he got paid for it by Disney. So that's crazy, isn't it? Because the team won the cup, yet he took a check and sort of said, I'm going to Disneyland. And so Disney paid him money to do that right after they won the cup, like literally right after the shot was taken. Whereas last year at the Men's Rugby World Cup in Japan, our team, the Canadians, got crushed in the first 2 matches. But when match number 3 occurred, a typhoon hit and we couldn't play our 3rd match. We were expected to win that one. Now, management, leaders, trainers, the team could have been in their hotel room and drank sake all day, or like they chose to do, they went out in the community and they tried to help. They cleaned up, they squeegeed, they did whatever they could for 2 days before they finally went back to Canada. That's my point. When we play for meaning, we're not playing for the name on the back of the jersey like Patrick Roy was. We're playing for the proverbial crest on the front. Why are we here? And that, funny enough, is the first question when you play for meaning. Why am I here? What is the purpose of my leadership? Who am I serving in that leadership? Is it just me? Or is it the team? Is it the community? Is it all stakeholders? And most importantly, how do you want to be known when you leave a room? Like a bully, like an ignorant arse, or someone who's benevolent, caring, playing for meaning? Questions to consider. Lesson number 3 is called Stay Present. Now, before the pandemic hit in January, I went to one of our 3 goats children's soccer matches, and this is her up there. But this woman on the opposing team showed up with a tent for one. Now, I think she knew something about the pandemic because I think she was preparing, but it was obviously to make sure that she didn't get wet. Now, the arrow that you see pointing is to her phone, because for the entirety of the match, as I stood beside her trying to figure out what this woman was doing, she did not look up at the game. Like, not once. Didn't know that her team lost 3-1 and my daughter scored 2 goals. But that's another point. So metaphorically, I ask, are we present in our meetings with our team members, or are we distracted? I mean, in the Netherlands, they've got red, amber, green lights in the sidewalk so that people don't, zombie text into traffic and then fall into a lorry that's going to decapitate them. In Beijing, or at least outside of Beijing, they've got texting lanes. I mean, that's crazy. So the question is, how overloaded are you if you're not staying present? And what does that feel like if you're overloaded to the team member in which you're trying to lead? Well, I'll tell you what it feels like. It's a bit like 2 hamsters in a hamster wheel. Logic tells you it's not going to end well, and it doesn't end well. I mean, this poor hamster, wasn't hurt, but you get the point. So the quiz I want to ask you, if you go back to your phones or whatever, the question is, how do you describe your level of busyness right now? Is it very low? Is it so-so? Is it very high? Or do you feel like the damn hamster? So go ahead and sort of track it, and we'll kind of see how we are doing as a cohort here as we go through this. So you got some very low. That's good. Healthy. I like that. You got about a third of you that feel like the hamster. Quarter of you-ish are very high, and then about a third or so are so-so. Again, as a leader, I want to do this both as self-reflection for you, to get it on the table, if you will, but also I want you to see that as you're leading others, or even you're just a peer in your organization, that people are in different states of busyness, pandemic or otherwise. So I think we need a reality check. We need to go and take a look at how our time is being spent. So you need to audit your time, your team's time, the meeting times, project times, capacity, efficiency, productivity, all of that nonsense stuff. We need to just take a step back and have a reality check. What the hell's going on? Because I don't think many of us are present. Then I want us to take a look at our calendars and say, how might we build in some focus blocks, i.e. time where I'm just there to think or maybe catch up, and that it's honored and it's not trampled on by the organization. Now, even better is if you as a team have a discussion about the norms on how you're going to be more present with each other. How are we going to communicate, collaborate? How are we going to put phones away in meetings? How will we be there for one another? Have an open dialogue and revisit it sort of every 3 to 6 months to make sure it's not gone stale. That's 3. Lesson 4 is remain curious. I can't think of anyone better than Malala, whom literally took a bullet to the head by the Taliban in Pakistan because she was pushing for lifelong learning. Actually, she was just pushing for learning for girls, and the Taliban didn't want anything to do with that. Now, wouldn't you know it, this year she graduated from Oxford. Ha 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 ha, Taliban? Yeah, exactly. Or if we go down to the States, in the South, Alice Coachman, who was segregated and looked at all these white kids doing track and field. And she was like, I really like that high jump thing. I wish I could do that. And if she wasn't curious about the how could I do that part and didn't sort of find like milk crates and trees and string and just practice this high jump thing, for days and weeks and months on end until some college coach had the curiosity to say, you look pretty good. Maybe we should help you. If that all doesn't happen, America and Couchman doesn't win the first gold medal of a black person anytime, a black woman anytime, anywhere at the 1948 Summer Olympics in London in the high jump. That was the winning jump. That's her getting her medal. So how do we remain curious? Well, I've got something for you to consider. First of all, like baseball, we should be leading off the game with a bunt, with a single, with someone to get on base. So how are you leading off your meetings, your performance reviews, your day, your whatever? Just think about the lead-off part of learning. I need to change things. I need learning to happen. That's how I remain curious. I need to break free from my little circle that I have, and I need to engage other communities, other networks, other people, because I can learn from others. So why don't I engage with others? Then I need to remember, you know what? This is a pandemic. I need to adapt to these new situations. I don't want to go back to the old way. There's no such thing as the new normal because that presupposes that it was normal before. I need to adapt to the future. That is curiosity. Then when I learn something, I need to reinforce that in my daily habits. Not spray and pray, not one and done. What are you going to do after the end of these 60 minutes? You're just going to say, well, the bald guy from Victoria was a bit loud. I kind of like the graphics, but yeah, whatever. Or are you going to take something from this and reinforce it into what you do as a leader? And maybe you will do what I call nurture forward, which is when you learn something, you agree to go teach someone else that. You're paying it back. You're nurturing forward. And look, it's pretty easy to remember this. You know why? Because it spells learn. Now that's handy. Lead off, engage, adapt, reinforce, nurture. Lesson 5 is to embrace change. Now I turn 50 next year, or as I like to say, 50, which means that I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, which means that I'm a Kodak kid. And I remember that everything was, yeah, you're right, a Kodak moment. Now this company had like 400,000 employees around the world, a lot of them in New York. Why? Because it had 90% market share of all film and it had 85% market share of cameras. I mean, it was insane. But they had this team working on digital photography and they figured it out. And so they went up to the bosses and they said, look, we've been spending like a year on this. We have figured out that we've patented it and we know how to make digital photos now. Do you want to see? So they looked at it and they're like, yeah, no, we're a photography company. We're not going to do any of that. And the team's like, what do you mean? They tried again 6 months later. Look, we've even perfected it more. Nothing. Crickets. They've got like 4,000 people working for them, and the Japanese obviously took the patents and then created digital cameras, and the rest is history. So how do you embrace change, which is the lesson? Do you be like Kodak? Or maybe you be like my family when there was a pandemic, remember that? We decided to teach our kids blackjack because they had never learned blackjack before. Weird example, but now we play blackjack every other Friday. In fact, this Friday is blackjack night, so we're pretty excited. It's not real money, although this kid, I mean, I'd like to take his money. He drives me crazy. So to embrace change, I want you to think about a few strategies. How will you pluck, I love that word, how will you pluck from yesterday the good and the bad so you can take the learnings, remember lesson 4, and apply it to the change in which you need to make? Number 2, will you listen to others on the team or whatever about something you do have to change? Or will you be like Kodak? Will you reframe your thinking, just like we said in the previous lesson, or will you be stuck in your ways? Now, I'm going back to the UK and another fast food example. 2 weeks ago, Burger King told you to order from McDonald's. They had adverts everywhere. What? Why would Burger King tell you to order from McDonald's? Well, because they said, we never thought we'd be asking you to do this, but restaurants employing thousands of staff really need your support at the current moment. Getting a Whopper is always best, but ordering a Big Mac, not such a bad thing after all. That is reframing your thinking in a change like a pandemic. If Burger King can tell you to go get a Big Mac, what are you doing to embrace change? Lesson 6, dare to share. Now, as George introduced me, I came from a background where I spent lots of time in SAP, lots of time at TELUS. I would go in as a chief learning officer and kind of make sure that people are learning, educating, leading, engaging, you name it. Went into a call center once. And in that call center, I saw that they were doing their jobs admirably, but each of them were also on their phones, like kind of secretly, it looked like texting. So I kind of observed this pattern. And then finally, after half an hour, I go up to one of the tech support agents. I said, hey, what is happening? And she laughed at me. She's like, you must be management. And it's like, okay, this is getting serious. All right, you want to know why? Well, we're texting each other because you baboons basically turned off instant messaging. You said it's a distraction. So we decided to create a life hack, a work hack. And so when we don't know something, we text each other and we wonder if they have the answer so that we continue to do our jobs. Daring to share. Do you dare to share as an organization? Now, why don't we share? Well, there's a litany of issues. Silos. Marketing's never going to talk to IT. Why would we do that? That's crazy. Like we said, people are busy, so I get time to share with you. Forget that. Selfishness, because if I share, they're going to get credit and I'm not going to get promoted, so that's not cool. Now there's people who are scared to share because that'll show up and say, oh my God, the boss is going to look stupid in this one. I better not share that because he should have known it. People are just dumb. There's some clueless people out there. And then the worst one I can't stand is spite. Oh, we're not going to share with them. They stole our lunch. Or we're not going to share with them. We heard a rumor that they didn't share with that other team last year. So in sum, people have spite, they're clueless, they're scared, they're selfish, they're busy, or they're silos. So you guessed it, pull out your phones, go back to the poll. I want to know which one causes you the most grief at work. Is it scared, selfish, silos, clueless, busy, or is it our nemesis, spite? All right, so up here we got the selfish horse is lead in. Is that 43? Oh, look out, silos coming back. That's a big, oh, scared came out of the gate here. Let's go clueless. Oh, poor clueless. She's a little bit loose there. Busy's coming up. Oh, silos still got the race. Spite's come out of the horse. A little bit late, but I don't know, we're coming at the end here. And silos wins. Now take a look at the screen. And again, my point being is that we all have these impressions of why we don't share. And we know it happens. So I've got a tactic for you. I call it up, down, and around. Up is you have to get up, say, who can I share with in my team? Just like, okay, up, get out of your seat. Who needs this information? Down is you going around saying, hey, Jill, Emily, you know that SIP report you put out, Em? Can I get that, please? Because I just need it. So you have a responsibility to go and get it. And now around is you saying, well, actually, maybe someone in the marketing department could use this information. I could be a hero. And you thinking about others in the organization, but outside of your unit. Up, down, around. Lesson 7, command clarity. Simple question here. Do you want to be a goldfish who's pretending to be a shark as a leader? Or a shark who's pretending to be a goldfish? You're not clear on what it is? Or do you want to be Greta Thunberg? Again, I don't care about your politics. You know where Greta stands. She's very clear and she commands clarity because she's got a purpose. She's got a vision and she will be visceral if you want. She'll cut you to shreds in her speeches. So what happens to be a command clarity type of leader? What's the behavior? First of all, you're transparent. Don't be a jellyfish transparent. I mean transparency when it comes to what are you up to? How are we going to get there? Are there job cuts coming? Like as much as you can, be authentically transparent in how you lead. But you also need to be realistic. You can't boil the ocean. You can't put too much on your people. You can't do that because people are breaking. But you've got to be realistic in where you're going, how you're going to get there. You can't sit on the fence suffering from paralysis by the analysis. If the team gives you all the data, make a decision. Maybe it's wrong, maybe you come back to it, but don't wait. The team doesn't see you as a clarity-based leader if you're sitting on decisions. And then back to load, I want to introduce load balancing. I want to do that because of Kawhi Leonard. Now in 2019, when he played for the Raptors, he only played in 60 of the 82 regular season games. Why? He wasn't hurt. Management, when they traded for him from San Antonio, took a look and said, you know what? We want to make sure that we save him for the playoffs and for the championship because that's how we know we're going to win. So he's not hurt and doesn't get re-injured from before. Didn't play back-to-back games ever. And they did that with several other athletes on the team. Guess what? They won. So what are you doing metaphorically as a leader to look at the team to be clear and to command that clarity on how people are doing their jobs with their loads? If you're not clear. Lesson 8, quite simple, is we need as leaders to do a hell of a better job into committing to balance inside our teams and our organization. 3 things to consider. Like a stock portfolio, are you diversifying the team? Age, race, ethnicity, LGBTQ, socioeconomic, marital, whatever. There's about 50 categories. That is the what. And it gets far too often lumped in with the how. That's to include. How do you include voices into decision making, into ideas, into creating communities or employee networks or employee resource groups for their kind? And how do you as a leader insert yourself to understand better? Don't say a word, just listen and appreciate and empathize. D&I is not one term. Diversity or to diversify is the what, to include or inclusivity is the how. And as an added bonus, what's your recognition strategy as a leader? Do you have one? Do you know how to recognize your team socially, informally, formally, using discussion forums, saying thank you, saying gesundheit, being civil? If you can't answer those questions, then you're never going to live up to the standards of Nelson Mandela. Because when he was incarcerated at Robben Island, what did he do? Well, it took him about a month to realize that all the men had something to give. He realized that whether they were black or white, and the prison guards as well, had something to give each other. So he called and started Struggle University. He created a university in prison at Robben Island so that all the men could share their wisdom, regardless of who they were or where they came from. Everyone had something to contribute. That is a D&I and recognition strategy all lumped into one. Talk about a commitment to balance when you're incarcerated. Lesson number 9, before we take some questions, is quite simply known as champion others. Best described in a story with Serena Williams and Canada's Bianca Andreescu. Now, at the 29 Canadian Open in Toronto, Andreescu was faced off with Williams, arguably the greatest tennis player ever, male or female. And with Andreescu up 3-1, Williams had to abandon the match due to an injury. Now, it's the first time, as soon as the umpire said match abandoned, that a Canadian had won in 50-odd years. Now, Bianca didn't go onto the middle of the court and start screaming and waving a Canadian flag that she won. She went over to Serena. She knelt down as if, kneeling to the queen of tennis and said, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? Can I help? That's how we champion others. This high school kid, about 2 weeks ago, on the end of the test said, if you could, can you give my bonus point to whomever scores the lowest? That's anonymously championing others. So get your phones out. Another quiz question. What's the one word that describes for you how it feels when someone champions you? What's the one word? What do you feel like when you know someone's got your back or someone's done something pretty cool for you? Validated, wonderful, empowering, humanizing, grateful, honored, Warm. Oh, that's pretty cool. I love that. Seen. Very cool. Satisfied, honored again. Seen. I love that. Proud. Self-esteem. Good one. Keep it coming. Courageous. Touched. Really good stuff. You guys are passing the test with flying colors right here. Valued again. Great. Another grateful, another honored. I love we're getting 2 spellings of grateful. Fantastic. So we'll put that all together and call that grateful. Humbled. Good one. Uplifted. These are fantastic people. Supportive. Another good one. So what do we have to do as leaders to sort of better champion? Well, I got a couple tactics, and I'm a big Star Wars fan, obviously. But the first is to get naked. Now, you're like, Dan, that's an HR violation. I'm not going to get naked. I know. It's a euphemism, essentially. What are you doing to sort of stop wearing your Teflon suit? What are you doing to be vulnerable? What are you doing to be a human being in front of your team? To champion others actually means you're less of a robot as a leader and more yourself, just like you are hopefully at home. Which means that when you're at home, I want you to break the mirror from now on. I don't want you looking at the mirror, okay? Maybe to brush your teeth and do your face, what have you. But I don't want you metaphorically at work looking at yourself, even though you're doing that on all your Zoom calls. I want you to look past the mirror and think about your team. Empathize. What is it that they could use right now? How could I be a better championing others type of leader? Can you metaphorically hold the door and induce some civility and some kindness? For example, when the UPS truck put a hitch onto the FedEx truck in the middle of a snowstorm because our FedEx truck was stuck. That is the epitome of championing others. So I have one final story, and we're going to come over here and we're going to take some questions with Julie and I. When I thought I had another book in me, I asked for a hall pass from Denise, my infinitely better half. I said, Denise, I have never been to New Orleans, weirdly, because I travel a lot. I'd like to go to the city of Satchmo, Nolans, where I love gumbo, and I want to be inspired to see if I might have a book in me. And I tell you, I was inspired when I walked into the House of Blues because these 2 gentlemen were playing. This is me filming them. The guy with the hat on the left, I love hats, gets to the mic and says, this is our last song. This one's for my wife. And this is them singing Stand By Me. I thought it was great. Now, there's about 50 of us in the place at this time. They pack up, they're gone. 10 minutes later, the guy in the hat circles kind of behind me, which I didn't see him, and he spooks me. He's like, hey, you were watching us all night. I was like, this is weird. Yeah, I was. Now, he said this. He said, weren't my son and I really good? I said, you guys were incredible. Now, secretly, I'd already given them $20 for the server to put in this bucket right there. Anyway, he says this. He said, well, that's the first time we played tonight in 6 months since my wife passed. I had to take care of her for a while there, but I thought we were pretty good tonight. And I said, sir, you don't know how good you were. Crying, tears coming from my eyes. And I said, this means the most that you shared that with me, such honesty, humility, and vulnerability. You truly do care. And then he walked off into the Bayou night. And that's what gave birth to this book. The recognition that if you want to win as a leader, you need to care with your leadership. It's actually in reverse. So if the book's not enough, I've got an entire 16-hour, 9-lesson online learning program. Yeah, I'm upselling you right now. So whether it's the book or the online learning, I want to see you care more, and it's at your availability, or you get site licenses for your entire team. With one last poll question, then we get over to the questions. How excited are you to read the book and or enroll in the program? Your options are, I'm ordering it right now. I'm going to have to check with my boss. Sorry, I was distracted. What did you say? Or you don't read. I have no time. Please, next question. Yep, good stuff. I knew about a quarter of it. Yep, that's perfect. Now, I'm only kidding. I got one last story. Well, I'd love you to get the book, but one last story. It's coming into the Christmas season, the holiday season. So if you're like me who had to suffer with the elf on the shelf, a pandemic tip for you. Use the time wisely. Tell your kids that the elf on the shelf is in lockdown during the pandemic, and then conveniently misplace that thing forever. because I know it's giving me some heartache through my ears. Okay, we've got 10 minutes. I'm going to switch cameras, and Julie and I are going to have a little bit of a chat. Julie, over to you.
Thank you, Dan, very much for that incredibly engaging presentation. And I got tons out of it. I've written many notes, but I think my favorite quote from you is "Stop being a Teflon dork." When somebody upsets me, this is what I'm going to use from now on. So thank you very much for that.
All yours. It's all yours,
So,
Julie.
I am Julie Lawlor. I'm the Executive Director with the WestShore Chamber of Commerce, and we are now inviting attendees to submit their questions in the Zoom Q&A. The session's being recorded. You can submit your question anonymously if you prefer. So please do use the Zoom Q&A and chat. The production team will monitor the Whova chat and Q&A for those joining through the app. And a reminder that as you share your takeaways to social media, please use the hashtag Rising Economy Week 2020. So we've got a few here that we can get started with. And so, Dan, just in within the framework of your book, as you already identified the elephant in the room, right? That COVID-19 is with us. And in terms of the lessons from your book, but also just bringing that into what we've got going on now, what are your observations? What are you noticing about burnout and mental health impacts? And how are leading organizations supporting their employees and leadership teams?
Yeah, so whatever study I've read so far, since basically they started coming out in May, so the better part of the last 4 months or so, two things are happening. Disengagement is on the rise after years of actually going up. Disengagement now is starting to afflict our organizations. And then the corollary, of course, is many of these other data points are suggesting that stress and sort of a lack of wellness, whether induced by weight gain or mental fatigue, et cetera, are also on the rise. So if anything, what I'm seeing some of the organizations finally do, because a lot of us have been in deer in headlight mode. Oh my God, it's a pandemic, and trying to save budget, trying to save revenue, trying to save the business. Let's say, we have almost taken a second step or a second review or regard, I guess, of employees. And it was not just all hands on deck, but get your feet on there as well to support whatever it is that we can do to try and remain open or continue the business. Now, that's aside from those that are clearly needed. So essential service groups like hospitals, the telecom, the Amazons, like leave those aside. I'm talking about the rest of us right now. And that duress, I think, needs to be addressed. Regardless of the fact that we've got the pretty good news of the 3 vaccines, I still believe that it's going to take at least a year to get full production out. So we're going to need these next 3 to 6 months, in particular, next 3, for leaders to say, okay, you know what? It's my job right now to take care of you. So what do you need? Do you need a month off? Do you need more time off? Can we collapse the work days from 5 to 4 during the week? Like, let's get some team norm conversations happening to let the team know that you care and that there are strategies that we can employ for sure. And again, I may sound like a benevolent buffoon whom is, way too caring, but the data suggests that we're stressed out, and we need to do something about it, not just pay lip service to it.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, I think one of the silver linings, if I can call it that, of this pandemic is that the focus on mental health and actually on talking to one another and understanding that our lives are about more than just work or just home, that they're a blend, has been really beneficial. And now this one, I don't think we have enough time to answer, even if we were here for the 6 hours, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So we've got a question. Love the up, down, and around concept when it comes to sharing information. How can we apply this to our wonderful metropolitan region where there are 13 local governments and 9 First Nations governments? Some of the solutions for COVID-19 recovery require region-wide collaboration. And of course, post-COVID, pre-COVID, some of the solutions for our region require collaboration. So do you have any views on that, Dan?
You mean aside from amalgamation? Because that'll just open up a whole series of wounds for everyone. being a now 8 years living in Victoria, I can kid around with the amalgamation point. But yeah, ultimately, I think there's ways in which for the various entities using digital tools to say, okay, here's how we're going to share this stuff within our communities, our cities, our townships, our First Nation groups, whatever. Here's the criteria almost. You could use like a 1 through 5 or a 1 through 4 type of criteria system that says, nice to know, pretty important, we've done this before, would you like to learn, and share the wares of that. Now, I know some of it happens, but if we could be a little systematized and actually get sort of some KM experts in here, knowledge management experts, to maybe set that up, maybe the urban systems folks, for example, like someone that might be able to actually classify the data and put it in a way that makes sense to people to upload. I think that would be fantastic, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, another silver lining of the pandemic is that we have all collaborated in unprecedented ways. And I think that that's something that we'll be carrying forward. So another question for you here: how can we develop organizational leaders to be more EDI intelligent, equity, diversity, and inclusion?
Yeah, well, obviously in lesson 8, commit to balance, there's a huge piece there on EDI, which has essentially for years gone unnoticed. And I'm not suggesting that is the end or the beginning, by the way. What we need to do is actually bring in folks into your organizations that are the subject matter experts. When I see in the States, for example, the push for chief D&I officers, et cetera, and they put like a middle-aged white man in the role, they've kind of lost the plot. So how might you get an expert who is an EDI expert into your organization, either on contract, either as a consultant, someone to give you the wares of what's working, what's not, a process organization, or the world, I should say, and then bring that expertise in. Don't try to do it on your own. You're going to mess it up. So just ultimately hire in the right expertise.
Thank you, Dan. I think we've got time for one more. So could you speak to the impact that being a good follower has on being a good leader? How might you know you are a good follower?
How might you know you're a good follower, I suppose, which I understand the question. I'm just not a big leader-follower kind of conundrum there. I think we're all leaders of self. So if we're a leader of self who has to, if you will, be in the company or under the stewardship of a leader, I would be asking that leader for feedback on my style. And really it goes into more than an annual performance review. I would be asking for coaching conversations, in so much as 10 minutes a week. So I call it basically the coaching catch up. If you have a 10-minute coaching catch up with your leader and you're able to ask those types of questions, they're not job related, they're not project related, they're not skill related per se based on your job, but it's more about how you're doing in the I guess deployment of some of those quote follower skills. That's what I would be doing. You need that kind of timely, sensitive feedback, and I think coming in a coaching call like that would be the best way to do it. 10 minutes a week.
That's great, thank you. And yes, I was on another session earlier this week that was talking about feedback, the importance of feedback, and just how it makes a difference to any person at any level, regardless of what they're doing. Well, Dan, thank you so much. Like I said, it was an incredibly engaging discussion, and I have no doubt that you're going to have a fair few people getting in touch with you for your book and looking at your training sessions that you offer, your professional development. So I would just now like to move on to thank the sponsors. Thank you, RBC and Western Diversification Canada, for supporting Rising Economy Week.